Hey folks, Jackdaw here. Mythal, the elven goddess of love, motherhood and justice, has always been one of the most mysterious figures in Dragon Age. Revered as a protector and a voice of reason among the elven gods, her legacy runs far deeper than the legends suggest. As the series has progressed through the ages, and as the Veilguard very quickly approaches, it becomes clear that Mythal's story weaves a much darker, more intricate thread than simple myth would reveal. The latest revelations from the Veilguard release date trailer add even more to this. Small spoiler alert, I am going to be discussing a key reveal in the release trailer. Everything else in this is just fun speculation rooted in past games lore. But if you haven't seen the release date trailer yet and you want to avoid spoilers, consider this your spoiler warning. The reveal really is essential to this theory. Still with me? Great. Okay. In the Veilguard release trailer, we saw Morrigan now wearing Mythal's headpiece, 10 years on since Inquisition's events, which just gives serious weight to the idea that Mythal is the true antagonist of Dragon Age. With the possibility of Mythal now possessing Morrigan, it suggests that all along she has been pulling the strings, positioning herself as the true mastermind of the series. Perhaps even the titular dragon in the Dragon Age franchise, so to speak, with her influence shaping the very fabric of Thedas. Like I said at the start, there's a darker side to her story, one that emerges when you look at her history and her future. Let's begin.
She was betrayed as I was betrayed, as the world was betrayed. Mythal clawed and crawled her way through the ages to me, and I will see her avenged!
Traditionally seen as a goddess of love, protection and justice, Mythal's true nature emerges from the shadows of her clash with Andruil. Andruil, one of the elven gods who delved into the void, the dark domain of the Forgotten Ones, who are another clan of gods of demise, diseases and malevolence. Well, Andruil is said to have returned from the void, plagued by madness and wielding dark weapons. Mythal, transforming into a great serpent, confronted Andruil, draining her of strength and stripping her of the forbidden knowledge of the void. This showdown not only reveals Mythal's readiness to subdue her fellow gods, but also suggests a deeper, more sinister motive. While this could showcase justice, I think it showcased potentially Andruil bringing the blight from the void, only for Mythal to then seize it for her own gain. While Mythal's actions might depict her protecting the world from Andruil's dangerous pursuit of the Forgotten Ones and the Blight, they also hint at a desire to monopolize the power tied to the void. The questions linger. In this story, was Mythal truly a figure of justice or a calculating manipulator securing her own dominion? Now, the Evenurus, who were ancient elven mages revered as gods by the ancient elves, were in truth tyrants who waged relentless war against their foes, which included the Titans and the Forgotten Ones. Among them, Mythal, the All-Mother of the Pantheon, was pivotal in the demise of the Titans, massive sentient beings with a hive mind akin to the blighted Darkspawn. Some codices from the Trespasser DLC suggest Mythal's actions might have profound and possibly deliberate repercussions, possibly unleashing the Blight. And this theory gains even more legs when we consider the recent revelation that the Blight is actually organic. It's conceivable that in slaying a Titan, Mythal inadvertently, or actually, maybe even intentionally, released the Blight upon the world. And let's pause on that one for a second, because we need to talk about the origin of the Blight, which is just another piece in this sprawling jigsaw that BioWare has built so far. The Blight, at its blankest state, represents a relentless cycle in which Darkspawn hunt for the slumbering old gods. And upon discovering an old god, the Darkspawn corrupt it, transforming it into an archdemon and triggering a new blight. This process is driven by a perpetual, haunting song that draws the Darkspawn to their prey. But what actually sets the blight in motion? Was it created by the elven gods and unleashed upon the Titans as a weapon, or merely not created but discovered by them? Did the ancient elves, in their quest for power, create create or release the blight when Mythal, quote, killed the Titans? Obsessed with mining the Titans' bodies for lyrium, did they inadvertently unleash the blight after becoming intoxicated by its power, perhaps even succumbing to madness? Or could it be that the Titans, in their corrupted hive mind form, sought revenge by using the blight to taint everything around them, attempting to reconnect with their children, the dwarves, which the Qunari believe that Elganan chased the dwarves away from the Deep Roads back in the day, further showcasing that the elves potentially severed the connection the Titans had with their children. Or, on another wavelength, is the blight a natural reoccurrence, akin to a plague that signifies the world's cyclical rebirth, in a similar capacity to the Reapers in Mass Effect, where it's something that must happen every X amount of years in an attempt for restoration. There's also speculation that the blight is tied to the Titans' very essence, with it being organic, and with lyrium being their blood, and also red lyrium representing blighted lyrium. This could mean that the blight may be a Titan's dying curse, their final organic struggle sent against those who would defile it. So many theories. The discovery of the blight in the Black City suggests a connection to the void, which the dwarves associate with the Deep Roads, considering the Anvil of the Void was found in the Deep Roads. On another element, could it be the creation of the veil that kept the blight at bay, only for it to then re-emerge in post-Veil Fadus when the Magisters, tainted by the Black City's darkness, brought it back into the waking world when they returned to Tevinter. Lastly, Solas indicates that even if all the old gods were slain, the blight would persist, Darkspawn would continue to exist, and the taint would remain. The mystery of the blight is as deep and convoluted as the Darkspawn's endless quest to find the cursed old gods. In the same breath, the connection between Mythal and the blight is one of the most compelling aspects of this theory, and it's at least something we can kind of explain to some degree. You see, when, or I should say if, the Inquisitor drank from the Well of Sorrows, they heard a voice that spoke and said, Mythal speaks the calling, linking her directly to the blight. And equally, the voice inside every single Grey Warden once their time comes to an end, as the calling urges them to venture back into the Deep Roads to kill as many Darkspawn as humanly possible before they actually become a Darkspawn themselves. This overtly suggests that Mythal in some regard controls the blight, either as a tool for her own ends, or since she took Andrew's power away, or potentially since she killed a Titan. Whatever the case, its implications, if true, are huge. Furthermore, we have the intriguing possibilities around the old gods' souls. We all pretty much think that the old gods are essentially the 7 elven gods that were imprisoned once Solas created the Veil. However, what if the old gods' souls were actually fragments of Mythal herself, since her betrayal, with Flemeth now collecting them and manipulating them for her grand design? You see, Flemeth's pursuit of these souls could be a part of a broader scheme to reclaim and consolidate her power, especially with Flemeth setting the seeds for Morrigan's dark ritual in Dragon Age Origins ahead. She intended for Morrigan to do that in order for her to take the soul from Kieran later on for her own misdeeds. And so if the old god souls are indeed pieces of Mythal and not the other elven gods, then the blight serves as both a tool and a symbol of Mythal's enduring quest for justice and revenge against those who wronged her. Perhaps she wants the blight to completely succeed and transform Fadus into a complete blighted mess. Is that the reckoning she so seeks? More on the old god souls in a second, but Mythal's betrayal and murder by her fellow elven gods marked the biggest pivotal moment in elven history, igniting the chain of events that would lead to the creation of the Veil by Solas. This act of vengeance by Solas saw the elven gods exiled to their prisons beyond the Fade, yet Mythal's demise was not the end of her influence. Her essence, though fragmented, endured throughout the ages, and eventually fused with Flemeth, the infamous Witch of the Wilds. There's an argument to be made that perhaps Mythal actually connected with Andraste during her time, considering Andraste only went on to have ancestors that were purely daughters, just like Flemeth. That's another theory altogether though. Either way, when Flemeth revealed herself herself to be Mythal in Dragon Age Inquisition, it reflected her continued presence and her drive for retribution. The lines, "for a reckoning that will shake the very heavens," beautifully and fearfully showcase her relentless quest for vengeance. And this pursuit of justice has morphed into a broader, very much ominous agenda, where her aim is not only to exact revenge on each of the Elven gods, barring Solas, but also to reclaim her lost dominion. And like, does that mean she wants to also destroy the Veil, reclaim the time of the elves? Very much akin to Solas, hence why the two can in some way work together. More on Flemeth, as the direct vessel for Mythal's spirit, she has subtly shaped events for centuries to pave the way for Mythal's return, or at least Mythal's vengeance. And Morrigan, rightly so, has always been suspicious of her mother's true intentions. Flemeth's manipulations have included attempting to guide the Therin bloodline to release the ancient dragons in the Silent Grove, to steering the hero of Ferelden during the Fifth Blight with the aim to have an old god soul, and then even saving Hawke, but at the cost of transferring a piece of her soul safely to Sundermount for her resurrection ritual, each aimed at ensuring Mythal's resurgence. Again, in Inquisition, Flemeth told Morrigan that a soul is not forced upon the unwilling. This suggests that Morrigan kind of has a choice about becoming Mythal's next host, but in the same regard, Mythal can easily manipulate this situation to make Morrigan feel compelled to accept, like perhaps by forcing Morrigan to choose between herself or her son Kieran regarding who will be the next vessel, of course depending on your specific world state. For the ones in which Kieran doesn't exist, it gets a bit more complicated in that regard. But then we do have the Inquisitor, and if they drank from the Well of Sorrows, they too, just like Morrigan, are now bound to Mythal. So in that regard, could the Inquisitor actually become the next vessel of Mythal? Instead of having Morrigan as our central figure in the Veilguard donning Mythal's headpiece, could that role now be swapped out to our Inquisitor, also depending on our specific world state? I dread to think of it, but I also love the agency and the choice consequences. Like, hey Inky, you chose to drink from the well and bind yourself to what you thought was a dead elven god, but actually, Mythal, not so dead after all. Either way, it's clear that Mythal has never stopped working towards her ultimate goal, vengeance against those who betrayed her, and rightly so. But what does that actually mean for the rest of Thedas and those living in it? Also, what does it mean for Solas too? You know, Solas's rebellion was also based upon the Titans' deaths, which Mythal caused. While he is, of course, sympathetic to his queen, what place does he have in her reckoning that will shake the very heavens? Could Mythal equally be aiming to tear down the Veil itself, unleashing chaos as she then reclaims her lost power as only a wisp of herself remains currently, which then does work in tandem with Solas, but then what's the situation after that? And also, the questions remain. Can anyone actually stop Mythal? We've tried to kill her once and we've seen what happened. Or is Thedas really doomed to become a realm where the lines between justice and vengeance are literally blurred, where Mythal reigns supreme once more? Whether she's orchestrated events from behind the scenes or preparing for a more direct confrontation, like taking over the next vessel, Mythal's reckoning is coming and the fate of Thedas hangs in the balance. With Morrigan now wearing Mythal's headpiece in the Veilguard, I'm hesitant to say, but could we already be too late for the next phase of her plan? Dragon Age Taylor's version is hopefully ripe to answer all of these questions and more. But even beyond the next Dragon Age, with two elven gods as huge antagonists and then having closure for Solas, you know, the scene is set for either a climactic DLC for the Veilguard or a huge follow-up game focused on the series' true antagonist since the very beginning, that of course being Mythal, the All-Mother of the Elven Pantheon. This of course is all my thinking, my theory crafting, with just pure speculation and tinfoil on the Veilguard. But folks, what do you all think? This entire time I've always thought that Mythal is the true big bad of Dragon Age. One more piece to play in this puzzle after the Veilguard. That's at least my thinking, but what do you think? I of course would love to know all of your thoughts down below. But until the next one, of course, you are in the right place for the latest on Dragon Age The Veilguard. I've been Jackdaw, and until then, I should go whoa.